Digital 410 Media proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast with your hosts, Don Abernathy, Jeff Copsetta, and Dennis Blocker.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your favorite World War II podcast. I'm Jeff Copsetta, and I'm joined by our co-host, Dennis Blocker. Today, we are going to hold the line. We're going to fill the gap as we are without our host, Don Abernathy, today, who's feeling a little under the weather. So we are going to cover down for our good friend. And like I said, we're going to hold the line, and we're not going to retreat. We're not going to surrender. We're going to have a great episode tonight because Mr. Dennis Blocker is now one of our living historians. He is a true reenactor now. He is in the club. He is in the gang.
Oh, man.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the places that we've been and the things that we've seen and the people that we have met. It's going to be a great show. So, Dennis, thanks for coming on tonight, because otherwise it'd be me alone, and we'd probably just end up canceling.
I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited about tonight because there's been so much that we've experienced over the last couple of days.
Yeah, so I guess it was 2 weeks ago now. We had a little event in San Antonio for the Tex Hill wing of the Commemorative Air Force down there at Stinson Airfield, a historic Stinson Airfield in San Antonio. Beautiful airfield, beautiful museum, and a few wonderful hangars and some aircraft. And they were kind of trying to keep the legacy going of an event. I believe we were at the inaugural one last summer, when it was 168,000 degrees. And so they moved the event a little bit earlier this year, a little bit cooler. Had some cloud cover, low ceiling, so not a whole lot flying, but we made the best of it. They're just always so welcoming. I can't say enough about Tex Hill Wing and Commemorative Air Force down there, because they are just wonderful,
Great.
squadron.
Great
Really, set the bar for their cadet program, and just all around great folks. And but what was really, really special was not only was Dennis Blocker able to join me and help me with my display, and we had a few other great folks there. My good friend Savannah. We were even greeted by the Wonder Woman of San Antonio for those comic fans. But it was Dennis's very first event in uniform, in a World War II uniform, and I cannot wait to hear what that was like for him, and why it meant so much, and why he is now has been bit by the bug, you might say.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, broaching the subject, can I wear a uniform? But none of the uniforms available fit me. So it came down to, well, we do have this German Wehrmacht uniform in a dusty closet, and tried it on, and it fit. So I became a representative of the Wehrmacht. And it turned out to be quite a hit, because folks were coming to the show expecting to see Air Corps and Army and maybe some Marines. And as a little gig, what I decided to do was I decided to walk out in front of the hangar, which is surrounded by barbed wire for setting, as it turns out. And I was just pacing in front along the sidewalk. And we had so many people stop, take double takes, do U-turns, come around and say, I thought I saw a Wehrmacht soldier, a German soldier. What's going on? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you stopped. There's an amazing World War II event going on right now. We've got food, we've got drinks, we've got displays. Come on in. There's aircraft here. So people were like, I'm going home grabbing the kids. And sure enough, they would show up later on with a passel of kids and a stroller and mom and grandma, and people are just coming in through the doors, all because a German soldier was walking the perimeter. And I thought I would get some comments, they got the German eagle on your chest and the swastika underneath. And that wasn't the case. It was all just fascination and people wanting their pictures with me. I think folks realized that most of the German army were just defending their country. They weren't necessarily, members of the Nazi party and whatnot. But it was really interesting. And one of the fellows who decided to come and visit because he saw my uniform turned out to be a gentleman who was the U.S. representative to the UN for both President Bush's, and a fellow who had escaped from Cambodia, and he was just couldn't believe a German soldier was walking in front, and he stopped and grabbed some pictures with me, and we had a really nice talk. So, yeah, that was quite an experience. It was surprising. I thought that there would be some negative comments, maybe, perhaps, or that people would just ignore me. And the opposite was true. People were flocking around, and then you and I actually did some photo shoots, which turned out excellent.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and you really just you took it and ran, man. I was a little nervous for you. I think it's your first one, and I just know what it was like for me. You don't know what kind of crowd, you don't know what kind of questions you're gonna get, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know every single thing, right? And you're hoping that somebody's not gonna ask you a question where you're like, I have no idea, like, and it's
Yeah,
just it doesn't take much really, and it's like your credibility. They're like, oh, okay, moving on. But you make a good point. You were concerned about maybe some ill comments or any negative comments, and what I've seen. Yeah, we get those in living history, of course, but they're always from somebody you're never going to meet, and it's on social media somewhere, right? Like, I've never even heard of anybody who had the public at an event, be negative towards anything, because of the history of the war, right? I mean, they're there, I think, because they have a basic understanding of the war or
yeah,
just
that's a good
history in
point.
general.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think they're not looking to just point something out and just be that person. They probably don't have the guts to in person, right? Everybody's all nice and brave when it comes to typing something on social
that's
media,
so
but
true.
and living historians, especially those who reenact from the German perspective, they're always going to deal with that, I feel like.
Yeah,
But it is what it is, and it's an important part of history, right? I mean, it's the German story. It's part of the American story. So you need both sides of the coin there. You can't just have a bunch of soldiers trying to talk about hitting the beaches of Normandy without the other side represented. I mean, it's not fair. It's not accurate. It's just naturally going to be biased. So I really appreciate you being there. I was so happy that I was there with you for your first one, and we got to do it together. And boy, did
yeah, that was
things
amazing.
really snowball. They,
Yeah,
I mean, things elevated quickly the past 2 weeks, right? And I mean,
yeah,
it's been incredible. So, these past 2 weeks have really, they started out with you and I just binge watching Masters of the Air, right?
yes, yes.
That was like the introduction to these past few weeks, and
Yeah, and I
obviously
totally
we were.
lowballed it to you beforehand. I
Oh yeah,
totally,
yeah. Oh yeah. Dennis is like, well, yeah, it's no band of brothers, and then I'm there like I'm crying and I'm laughing and I'm like, oh my gosh, everything I've ever wanted to see, like, oh, uh,
yeah, I didn't want to give you too many expectations. I didn't want oversell it, so I undersold it, and I knew that it was just going to blow you out of the water.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right, and I appreciate you doing that for me. So, yeah, we started our time that way, and then there we are in Stinson having a great time. And like I said, you really brought so much to that program that I don't even know if the squadron down there realized how much impact you had having people. You drive past those hangars. There's no big signs. There's not.
No, there was no signage at all.
Yeah, and the hangar backs up to the road. So unless you couldn't really see us. You couldn't tell what
Yeah,
was going on. And there was some amazing stuff there that if it faced the road may have been a different story. But you being there, you brought people through the gate and
yeah,
showed
and I
them,
was
what we
able
were
to
doing.
tell them where to park, and I park right there
Yeah.
across the street, and there's a crosswalk, and I even I made a comment that I needed those German traffic signal things that you see those German policemen have, because at one point I had to stop traffic so that the lady could cross with her baby stroller. So there's this crowd in the middle of
There's a reel out there somewhere, folks.
I would love to see that video footage.
So yeah, like I said, great time, great inauguration for Dennis to be a living historian. And then, like I said, then it just snowballed, and it snowballed quick. 2 weeks later, now I had this on the books for a while, and just again, super pumped Dennis could join me. We get invited to the headquarters of the Commemorative Air Force up there at Dallas Executive Airport, about 4 hours from where I live, about 6 hours from Dennis. So we made arrangements. So he came into my place, and we rolled in together, loaded up all of our stuff. Loaded up the flatbed with my Jeep. First really big event that I got to bring my Jeep to, and I just, oh my gosh, that was just I was tickled pink just
Yeah.
because of that. But so man, did they roll out the red carpet or what?
Yeah, they
I
sure did.
mean,
It's
the
epic.
foyer of the headquarters for CAF is beautiful, right? Beautiful,
Yes.
tall glass. It's on the corner of their enormous hangar. We pull in about 8 o'clock Friday evening, and it's just here you go. Set up everything that you want, take up as much room as you want, pull out your cots. You can sleep in here, AC, bathrooms, break room. Oh, and by the way, when you go through this door and turn on the lights, there's a P-51
Yeah.
and a PT-19 and a B-24 and a B-17 and a B-29 and a T-6 and a
It's
P-80
like,
Shooting
what?
Star all in one room.
What?
And the joke through the weekend to Dennis was, it's not always like this, right? Like this is kind of we've already like maxed out. So,
When I
I
walked in
mean,
that hangar, I was like, and start John Williams music, and Steven Spielberg says, and roll them. And I walk in, and it's like I'm Christian Bale with my mouth open. Like the light is perfectly glistening off of the beautiful, pristine skin of the B-17. And it's like I've got that glisten in my eye, like those anime characters where it kind of jiggles up and down. And I'm just looking at this stuff, and I just want to. I can't believe it. And Jeff kind of has to nudge me and get me to keep walking. It was an amazing moment. Never forget it.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, again, just to have that invite, and I'll be honest, like, so I got the call. It was the day of, right before we pulled out, right? One of our really good friends, Wade Williams, we planned to have on the show. Great, great Army Air Corps reenactor. He called me. He said, "Jeff, they're putting us in the foyer," and I kind of was like, "Oh man, that's awesome! It's great! Like, oh my gosh, it can't get any better." But then it's also like this is the foyer to the headquarters of the Commemorative Air Force.
Yeah. And by the way, there's a red-tailed Tuskegee P-51 over our heads, hanging from the
Oh
ceiling,
yeah,
full
can't
scale.
forget it. Yeah, the P-51 chandelier up there. Yeah,
Yes.
wingtip
What?
lights are glowing at night. I mean, you saw it was.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. But I mean, we had to really kind of. I mean, we had to feel like we were worthy. It was
Right.
like everything's got to be just so, and all they kept asking was, "Is that okay?" I want to make sure that you guys don't feel excluded from the big part of that hangar. But everybody came through the foyer, and they had to get their ticket, they had to enter there, and the folks that came through, and you made the point too, like if they're sticking around, it's because they want to know something, and they want to ask us about what's on the tables. And now, by the way, our tables was about 40 linear feet of
Yes.
Army Air Corps artifacts between us. So there was plenty for them to see and do, and things for kids to pick up and touch. And it was great because we weren't fighting the background noise, and you're in the middle of this inspirational story, and then the B-25 is taking off. And then you got to wait, and it's like, I forget it. I don't even know what I was talking about now. So there was no distractions, and it was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Epic. Um, Once again, couldn't have had anything nicer done for us. And we were very respectful, and we full well knew the magnitude of what we had been given. And so we went out of our way, put in full time, went, walking all over the place, walking perimeters, not taking a lunch break until we were told to by the staff there, hey, go grab some food. The food's ready. standing by the tables, answering questions, kids wanting photographs, Jeeps, and holding babies, kissing babies. But, it was just, and it was overwhelming. It was really overwhelming. And I'm glad you told me that they're not all like that, different venues and whatnot. But I'm very thankful for that moment. And Wade, I mean, what a tremendous dude! Like, what a great guy, and all of the table that he set up was just perfectly matched yours, and just tremendous. Yeah, I can't say
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
I can't say enough about that.
So, I got a comment, I guess it's been a couple weeks ago now, from a listener on the East Coast and just told me, shared some pictures of some places where he had been in some aircraft that he had taken pictures in front of with his kiddo. And he said, thanks for sharing all the stuff that you guys do with us.
Mm,
And
yeah.
it's impactful. I told you guys about that before. Like, we love this, and sometimes you get caught up in you feel like maybe everybody gets these opportunities, right? I mean, we're no different than any other reenactors, and it's cool we have a podcast, and we've all got some pretty, unique history and some experiences, but so does a lot of other people. But it kind of was a little bit, I took a step back reading that comment. Thanks for sharing what you guys do with us being, the What's the Scuttlebutt listeners and those who follow us on social media. And it was like, wow, I never really thought about it that way, I guess, and then it really struck me that I have never paid admission to an air show in my life.
Mm,
And, because we get invited and we are asked to do different things for different organizations or represent different things. And, sometimes like happened twice this weekend. They put a camera in your face, like, yeah, this is the news. Go.
yeah.
But
I
it's
even
just,
sold some. What was that lady selling bird seed or something?
yeah.
Um, I had a lady put a canister in my hand as a kraut and say, "Can you mind promoting me? Do a thumbs up." And I'm like, "Jawohl." Was a
We got
fatherland.
handed it in the Jeep. Like, okay, we're in a birdseed commercial.
We're in a birdseed commercial all of a sudden. So, you know what? We'll do what we got to do for to earn our keep.
Right. Absolutely. So, what I thought we would do is, and of course I'm gonna let you go first, is, let's maybe pick three highlights each, right? That and we won't duplicate things for the sake of the listeners, of course, but there was a lot. There was a lot to talk about. There was a lot we did. There was not nearly enough pictures because I'm terrible at that. But there is so much, and there's some things that we are going to kind of hold back on because we want Don to be here. But Dennis, I was going to let you go first. I mean, if you could pick three things that really stood out to you besides the obvious, right? We're in the most amazing building full of the most amazing World War II aircraft. But, aside from that, maybe your top three things that you experienced, over that long weekend.
Yeah, yeah. That's easy. Number one, the most amazing moment was being able to tour the inside of the B-17 with you and nobody else there. Like the place completely empty after hours. Just everything is locked down. You can hear the vibe. You can hear the hum of the lights overhead. You can hear the fan on the tops of the ceilings swishing, and it's that quiet. And even the bomber itself has this energy that it's putting off. And we start at the nose, and I'm sitting in there where the navigator and the bombardier, their compartment, and I just sat there for a bit, and you could see something spiritual was happening, and you were very quiet, and knowing full well also that I'm working on this book um, that we're writing right now with writing with another author, and I was taking it all in. I was looking at the rivets. I was looking at the plugs, the wiring, the tubes, the oxygen, the regulators, the different gauges, how things were situated. Are the chairs swivel? Do they move? The Norden bomb sight, the tabletop, and what's it made of, and and I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at the black stains on the canvas seats that represent years and years and years of sweat and people sitting on it and moving back and forth as the plane is in flight. And then going from there and looking at the pilot's compartment and the top turret, and taking that walk through the Bombay, and that tiny catwalk was 8 inches. And it's funny because before, you and I had actually asked you, how wide is that? And you were like, it's not wide at all. And you said you thought it was 8 inches. I called around to different historians. Yep, 8 inches. And I get there and it's 8 inches. And when I was walking across it, I'm a bigger fella, and I had to sidestep, right? I had to turn, and I had to duck, I had to step up and then in. And I was imagining I was imagining turbulence, I was imagining flak, I was imagining air pockets from the aircraft ahead of you that are causing disturbances. That thing's jostling around. The bomb bays are open, and it's a free fall for quite a while. And I was imagining all that. And the radio, I mean, that just, I think the fact that I was able to do it with you, and that we weren't on a tour where we're being pushed because there's a crowd of people behind us. You can hear their footsteps behind you. You can hear the ladder creak. More people are coming up. You hear voices behind you. We were able to just sit there, listen to the ghosts of the people that were there before, listen to the ghosts of those that we're going to write about, that are talking to us, that we're remembering, that we're honoring in the way we dress, in the way that we retell their stories. Like, I got goosebumps right now, even talking about it. And that was my ultimate experience, was that B-17. There were others that we'll talk about, but that was mine.
Yeah, I think my number one, and that, of course, like I said, for the sake of the listeners, we're not going to duplicate because that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I think really the overall hospitality of the CAF staff, right? I mean, from the moment we pulled in, the entire weekend, the support we got from the ground forces, from marketing. I was really pleased to be able to meet, the CEO of the CAF, Hank Coates, right? Like, that was somebody I just see in the monthly Dispatch magazine, a letter from the CEO, and then just to kind of hang out with them in person. And then, I mean, their hospitality was beyond even what I expected, when I was a little nervous that I brought along my 1-year-old goofy basset hound mini Aussie. Right? Like, Moose is,
Moose.
yeah, he's as graceful as a moose. So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how is this going to go, and how are we going to keep him on a leash? And um, there were so many of the staff and the volunteers and the reenactors and just the general public that were saying hi to Moose. And when they were leaving, they were telling Moose bye. It was like,
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. He's all over the place. He's checking out everybody. Everybody's petting him. He's up in my Jeep. He's all over. I mean, he was great, right? But
Yeah.
that helped alleviate so much. It was just like, it was like we could do no wrong. And I told one of the volunteers, I said, I was sitting in my Jeep, and it was just the museum director. He's like, man, what do you think? And I said, I'm actually trying to take it all in. And it was shortly after that, Dennis, said you had walked up, and I think I was still kind of just sitting there glazed, and you were like, what's in your head? What's going on right now? And I was just trying to find the words. And I think I
Yeah.
said something like, it's like my entire childhood
Yeah.
is being relived and re-energized, and it's happening in front of my eyes, but I'm 40 years old and I don't feel indifferent. There's a World War II veteran right there, right? Got to see John Luckadoo again there, and then there's a B-17, and then there's kids. There's kids dressed up. There's a girl, that's dressed as a wave, and there's
Yeah.
kids that are dressed in 101st Airborne, gear, and it's like you just see. It was like I was looking back in time, but it was
Mm.
also
Yeah.
like I was seeing the future, and it really it meant so much also too, that this was it was probably one of the last events I'm probably going to do with my son before he joins the military.
Yeah.
Right, our time is really narrowing. Less than 2 months, he's going to belong to Uncle Sam, and it was special. And we didn't take near enough pictures together because I'm terrible at that. Right, I'm always there. Oh yeah, take a picture. Sure, sure, sure. And then I don't like stop and go, hey, let's take a picture. I don't do that very often, and I hate that. But he got some good shots. We got some good shots, and we both know we were there. So, it is what it is. But for Logan to be there with me and helping me take care of Moose, and he had his own display, and he's, a great reenactor in his own right. I mean, he's got an incredible little collection, tells a great story. He looks the part. He knows his stuff.
Yes.
So just that overall experience was for me that was kind of that was number one.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, I know we said we weren't going to double up, but I did kind of want to segue over into my second, which was the kids that were there. Um, Not only were they like really into World War II, but they took a lot of care and they put a lot of time and they put a lot of effort into their uniforms. And there were many paratroopers, and they had good gear. And there was even a another German soldier. I was standing there and I heard German behind me, some German words, and I turned around and here's this kiddo there and looking at me, and I'm like, "Kamerad," and and he came over and we got pictures, and it was very encouraging to see. It's like the baton, right? Like the guys passed us the baton, and we're going to be passing it on to this next generation. And it is just so encouraging to see that these kids, not only are they excited about it, but they're actually doing something about that excitement. They're actually getting uniforms, they're getting shirts, they know the gear, they're learning other languages, they're getting after it. And that was from like small kids with t-shirts to those kids with paratroopers to a young boy whose dad was there with him and follows him across the country, and they set up a tent, an actual World War II tent with actual World War II cots. Everything in the tent is World War II, and the things that aren't disappear in the morning when before the crowds get there. And he knows his stuff, and he does like a 3 shift uniform change throughout the day. Right? Am I lying? No, I'm not. He will start off the day with one uniform, do a total transition halfway through, and then in the third part of the day before everything goes out, he's got a whole nother uniform. And not only that, there's a crowd. I'm telling you, there's a crowd of people around this young man and other kids, and he is instructing them, and he's going through the rifle, he's going through the weapons, he's going through the uniform, he's going through the significance of the patch he's wearing and what unit it was and what they saw and where they went. I mean, that is just so encouraging and exciting to see, and that is definitely my second favorite thing that I experienced there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, my second is it's we have so many. I hope I'm not stealing this one from you. Um, and we're gonna definitely talk more. But when author Dan King showed up,
Oh man.
oh man.
Yeah.
So for the listeners that don't know, we just recently had him on the show, and Dennis was our contact for that, and
Yeah.
man, we're so thankful, that you had him as a contact, and it was really neat that Dan and I had a kind of a mutual friend with our buddy over in Japan, because Dan King, if you don't already know, is about the foremost authority to me that I've ever met about the Japanese experience in World War II, with the amount of interviews he's done, because he studied the language, he lived there. I think I would say he mastered the language. and the culture. I mean, he
Yes.
knows everything, and lives here not far from Dallas, and Dennis and I were just like, hey, we're gonna be up kind of in your neck of the woods in a few weeks. If you could stop by, we would love it. And fully expecting, probably not. I'm busy and there's things I got to do, and I'm writing all these books. But totally the opposite reaction, right? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
where are you guys going to be? I'll stop by Saturday, and we got some of his books, and we were just so honored and thrilled that he took the time and
Yes.
to sign them for us, and that's the thing that I want to wait for Don. I want to kind of hold back on some of
Yeah,
that. I mean,
for sure.
just him signing the books, the class, they're just so classy, and the
Yeah, there's a
gifts.
whole story there.
Yeah, there really is, but I could not leave him out of the top three, because very rarely, we have some amazing people on this show, and when we have over the past few years, we've really had some amazing folks, and we feel like we know them, and we stay in contact with them and all that, but we very rarely do we get to shake their hand, and so it
Yeah.
was refreshing, that. Dan we could actually talk to him and meet his amazing wife and hear a
Oh
little bit
yeah.
more of the story, right? I mean, he even
So
had his
great.
own book with him, and he goes, "Hey, get your book and turn to this page, and let me tell you about the." It was
Such a
just,
great dude.
it was incredible,
Yeah,
incredible. So, I mean, is it a number two? It was kind of like also a number one,
I know.
for
I know.
me, and so we'll just say it's my number two, and we're going to talk a lot more in depth on that one later for sure.
That was just such a freaking honor because he's been my hero forever. Um, so my number three, I'm as a writers that are worth their salt are very circumspectful and they're very empathetic, right? And that means they can put themselves in the shoes of others. And when in doing that, they can then convey that to readers and immerse the reader into that world, into that environment, into those situations, into the settings. And number three involves that to the max. And it's me by myself in the side room with all the nose art that's hanging there and from the ceiling. And that years and years ago, probably you can actually dovetail into this if you want to just explain some more. But a fella at a boneyard where all the World War II aircraft were coming back from the war, he was junking it, and he noticed all of the beautiful nose art on the B-24s and the B-17s, and he thought, "What a waste to just junk these." And so he got tools and he started ripping those apart. And he cut these large sections of nose art out. And his intention was to make a fence, which I'm sure his wife had something to say about that because it never happened. But he had multiple dozens and dozens and dozens of these amazing pieces of art, and he stuck them in a storage unit, warehouse, barn, and with the full intention of one day making a fence with all of these amazing pieces. And it never happened, and he passed away, and his family, taking care of the estate, discovered these in the barn, warehouse, storage unit, and donated them. And they are beautiful. And I was by myself once again, and I was just listening to the voices talking to me. And when you when you look behind them, and I found that very interesting as well. When you look behind the pieces, you can see half a desk that was cut, like the desk was cut right through. You can see the some tubes and tanks and wiring and half a foot pedal and the rivets and all of this stuff that was on the inside is still there. And you can't help but imagine people sat there, and it was in the China Burma India theater, it was in the Pacific, it was in Italy, it was in North Africa, it was over Europe, and they just display it beautifully, and they each have their own placard with a history of the aircraft, the numbered B-24. Most of them were B-24s, and it was just I really enjoyed, and like you said, we're gonna have another episode where we talk more about it when Dawn is here, but it's so hard to say about, but that definitely stood out to me as a really powerful moment. Seeing something that I never thought I would see in my lifetime, nose art, actual nose art from bombers that were thought to be long gone and extinct.
Yeah, and that definitely stood out to me as well. The last time I was up there, last year that was closed to the public, and the again the wonderful museum director up there, Kevin Hunt, said hey, do you know about our nose art collection? And I said I'd never heard of it. He said we have the largest nose art collection in the world, and I said you're kidding. He said oh yeah. He said whenever you want to go through, just let me know. We'll unlock it for you, and you can do whatever spend as much time as you want in there, take the pictures and everything. I was just that's not at all what I expected. That room, I mean, like you said, the way they're displayed, I mean, you can see the customization of all the racks that they had to build. But when I say racks, that sounds big and ugly. No, these are like very,
No. Yeah.
very like stylish and
Beautiful.
not distracting. Yeah, like it's so well done. And the other, just memorabilia in there with old Philco radios and bicycles and ammo
Yes.
crates and everything
Just
else,
immerse
it's
you in that
just
world. They immerse
yeah,
you
and
into the world.
it's like the room is just round and never ending, just kind of
Yep.
this swirl of so much to look at. And for the way I understand it, and I hope I'm getting this right, is when the CAF was offered these artifacts, it was like, what the heck are we gonna do? Of course, they obviously didn't look as good as what we see, right? A lot of them been touched up. So I could see how that would be like, what do you do with all this really fairly large scrap
They are
metal,
very large.
with some pretty faded paint. And it's somebody who now is employed by CAF who had made the comment of, hey, what if you made a display with this? And she is still there today. So really a neat idea that somebody had, and thankfully, the powers to be listened because it's a really neat exhibit. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great number three.
if you're driving through, like, it's just another dramatic, amazing reason to stop in and visit the museum because it's just something you'll never see again in your lifetime. It's amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's Tuesdays through Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4:30 at CF headquarters. If you're interested in going to the museum, if you live in the Dallas area or you're just traveling through. Um, my number three is a conglomeration of conversations.
Hmm.
So many people came to the table and said, "My dad was a top turret gunner on a B-17. The guy was my hero." Um, my grandfather was a co-pilot in B-17s. My grandfather was a pilot in B-17s. Um, my dad flew B-17s out of Thorpe Abbott's. Really?
Yeah.
That's the 100th. He goes, oh, yeah, yeah, 100th Bomb Group. What squadron? Oh, the 418th. Okay. Wow. And he said, it was a little after the Masters of the Air. He said he was there about September of 1944 to early 1945, which still is. I mean, that's
That
that's a
counts.
heavy hitting. Yeah, that's a heavy hitting time.
Jeez.
For the Eighth Air Force there. And I want to take a moment because that particular gentleman that told me, came up to me, it was him and his son that said, "Hey, yeah, my dad flew, with the 100th Bomb Group." He said that my dad's navigator um, kept a journal, and it's featured on the 100th Bomb Group website. Each mission that they did, and he pulls it up and he hands me his phone. Then he later texted me this link here, but he said, "Oh, just read mission number three down there." So mission number three was 11 September 1944, Ruhrland, Germany. Target was synthetic oil factory. Was attacked by FW-190s and ME-109s 5 minutes before reaching the initial point. Entire 350th group wiped out. Our tail gunner and bombardier each got one FW-190. Our group was the only one that hit the target. Bombed from 26,000 feet and found flak over target light. Trip home was long but uneventful. On way out, we had a 50 caliber shell come flying through the plexiglass nose. Lost 45 B-17s and 24s, but Luftwaffe lost over 100 fighters. Time of flight was 8 hours. Flew ship number 649, Lady Geraldine, and was number 3 man in the low squadron of the low group.
Jeez.
It reads like you're just reporting the weather.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, casually we lost 45, but they lost over 100. It was uneventful on the way home, except there was a 50 cal round that came through the plexiglass nose.
Wow.
Already on mission number. That's what I took out of that. Several of these other just, missions is just this was every day. One of these missions would be so traumatic to people who are not trained for that. And this is their everyday life. Um, my favorite, I think, were these two girls who were cousins, big Aggie family. I think there were several cousins there that actually approached my son at his table. And she said, yeah, my grandfather flew B-17s. He was shot down and he was a POW. And Logan says, you got to talk to my dad inside the foyer there. So she eventually caught up with us. And it was really nice because she had a little laminated, printed book about her grandfather and the last flight of his B-17 that was called Up and Atom. And she's going through, she's telling me, she said, yeah, she said, only four. She said the aircraft was hit. It was on fire. She believes the tail gunner and ball turret gunner were both killed due to the flak, and they hit the bailout buzzer. And most of the crew, or some of the crew, got out, but four of them stayed in the aircraft. She said the navigator, the pilot, operator, and let's see, the navigator, pilot, top turret, and radio operator. Her grandfather being the pilot, and so only four of them eventually bailed out. And she gave me a copy of the book because the research was done by the folks over the French, who some of them were eyewitnesses to the airplane crashing in the farm. A 10-year-old girl being one of them. When her grandfather parachuted out and landed, he was immediately captured by the Germans. But the French people that were there that saw the boys land, were under the silk, were clapping and smiling. And one girl came up and patted her grandfather on the back. Her grandfather being Lieutenant Willard Thomas. And according to Willard Thomas, the lady that pats him on the back, kind of like good job, is immediately arrested by the Germans as well.
Wow.
And he was just taken aback by the bravery of these French to show the support and like right in front of the enemy as they're coming to capture the crew that actually got to bail out. The French were so appreciative that they erected a statue, a big monument at the crash site to honor the crew of Up and Atom. Willard eventually goes back some years later. Then I think in the 90s, he goes back. He meets the 10-year-old French girl that saw him under silk and saw the airplane come down and crash and explode, catch on fire. Trees caught on fire. Chunks of the airplane went everywhere. The Germans eventually took the rest of the remaining crew, 5 charred bodies. They removed out of the B-17 there later. And then the family got to go over last year for the 80th anniversary of the airplane going down 29th, 1943, showing me videos of them in a French car that the underground used. It's a late 30s, early 40s French, Phaeton 4-door car. They got to drive in World War II Jeeps, cruising around the countryside, where he had crashed on this farm. Unbelievable story. It was their first mission, Dennis.
Jeez.
Mission number 1 for her dad and his crew. His co-pilot was the lead pilot that day, the captain, who did also get out and was captured. The navigator got out. His story is, and I don't want to give too much away, but the something that was covered in the miniseries. As a navigator, you go out that front hatch where we went into the B-17. That's the area that they bail out. He couldn't get the hatch to release to completely blow off, get out of the way. So it was very hard for him to get out that opening with all the flight gear, with the parachute. So he's kind of stuck in that hole trying to get out, and then the air finally sucks him through. His steel pot hits the left bomb bay door because it's hanging open because of the damage the aircraft sustained. As he's under the parachute, he sees the B-17 just kind of roll over and nosedive into this farm and explode in a ball of flame. The B-17 in the area around it burned for about 24 hours. And all he thought was, geez, I hope I think two of the engines actually flew off from the wreck. One took off the top of a barn nearby, and he was just, oh my gosh, I hope no civilians were hurt, and none were. And that's what he was thinking.
Wow.
He
Tremendous.
he he just had to bail out of a bomber on his first mission. He almost doesn't get out. He almost gets taken out by the hanging Bombay door, and he's thinking, "Oh my gosh, I hope no civilians were hurt."
Jeez.
That's a testament to anybody who argues the fact that we were just carelessly bombing people in Europe, because that is not the case. And I know there's strong evidence in a few examples where it seemed like we're, for those of us who are alive today as armchair generals. But man, those boys back then were trying to minimize as much collateral damage as possible, and I wholeheartedly believe that. The 8th Air Force didn't always do everything right, and some things just could not be avoided, like in any war. But that really stood out to me, and
Yeah.
she comes up later and she hands me the book. She was pulling from it, telling me about how he got to Stalag 3, and then he was taken to Stalag 7. Then he's in Nuremberg, and then he ends up in Moosburg, and General Patton liberates the POW camp, the Stalag at Moosburg. So she was very proud of the fact that Patton basically saved her grandfather. Um, but she catches up with me again, and she said, "You know what? I have several copies. Why don't you take this?" And I asked her, I'd love to talk a little bit about your grandfather on the podcast. And I said, you let me know if you're okay with that. And she said, absolutely. And
Wow.
that's what we do. That's exactly what we're doing, man. I mean, we got to keep these guys' legacy alive, their history alive, um, because May 29th, 1943 seems so long ago to so many people. But it's not. Their children and grandchildren are still walking around missing their dad, missing grandpa, wishing they could talk to him and ask him a few more questions. Um, Another interesting part of that story, and I'll wrap it up, is he was a proud Aggie family. He gives his Aggie ring to the crew chief on the ground before that mission. And of course, after
Mhm.
that first mission, he doesn't return. So decades goes by, and somehow that crew chief or somebody who that crew chief knew got a hold of that Aggie ring, found the owner, and he had since replaced it. So he now had two Aggie rings, his original one and his replacement. The original
Mhm.
found its way back to him decades. I think they said 40 some years later.
Wow.
Uh, kind of a neat end to that story, but man,
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I have definitely seen that you've made known to me, and I've seen it, the evidence of it is these events. People hear there's events there, and for some reason, there's some kind of a voice inside them that tells them to bring stuff. And I have seen you personally been handed books and documents, and um, it's remarkable. It's really remarkable.
Well, the spirit's alive and it's very strong in us, and I think the families realize that. And I cannot wait to talk about some of those other things for sure on a future episode. Because yes, I have been handed some really incredible artifacts over the last 2 weeks that I cannot wait to share
Yeah,
with our
amazing.
audience. And speaking of sharing our experiences, so we know there are some Patreon subscribers out there, and we really, really appreciate those Patreon subscribers. And if you are wanting to be a future Patreon subscriber, of course, just log on to WTSPWWIIEP.com. Click on the Patreon link. There's several different subscriptions there that we hope that you would support because Don and Dennis and I are to really start building some more Patreon exclusive content, some of those behind the scenes things that we just don't necessarily share right away with everybody. And I'm excited that Dennis
Yes.
helped me do some videography this past weekend, talking about an experience that I cannot wait to share with our Patreon subscribers. So be sure to check that link and check out our merchandise as well. Our stickers are going. There are some people that are interested in our stickers. We're taking them over the weekend, asking me, "Where'd you get that coffee cup at?" Uh, Conveniently gave them the link to the WTSP merch store. Um, so, Dennis, to finish up, um, we're always reading.
Yes,
People
sir.
are always asking us, "What are
Always
we
reading.
reading? Have you read this?" So, what are you reading?
Well, since I'm writing, I'm reading about 2 dozen books, but in the spirit of what we've been talking about with the air war and B-17s and B-24s, I'll read chapter of just a section from chapter 1 of this book called "Those Who Fall" by John Muirhead. He says, "I suppose I'm like most men who soldiered for a time. I think that something unusual happened to me. Some particular meaning was revealed to me, so I should set it down. Men have been boring their wives, their children, and other men with these kinds of stories from Marathon through Chickamauga, and I'm no different from the lot. Having survived it all, I can't leave well enough alone, but must ponder on it and remember and talk at least about one part of it that was, I think, a kind of glory. On the 23rd of June, 1944, I ended my time as a bomber pilot, flying out of Italy with the 301st Bomb Group, and became a prisoner of war in Bulgaria. My last mission was to Ploesti. Although that name had its own dreadful sound, the other places and other names all took their toll whether you feared them or not. It mattered very little when you finally bought it. The odds were, one always knew that something was going to happen. It was not felt in any desperate way, but rather it came as a difference in consciousness without one's being aware of the change. In the squadron, we learned to live as perhaps we were long ago, as simple as animals, without hope for ourselves or pity for one another. Completing 50 missions was too implausible to even consider. An alternative, in whatever form it might come, was the only chance. Death was the most severe alternative. It was as near as the next mission. Although we would not yield to the thought of it, we would get through somehow. Maybe a good wound or a bailout over Yugoslavia or northern Italy. The second front might open up and the Germans might shift all their fighters to the French coast. We might even make it through 50 missions. A few did. But such fantasies didn't really persuade us, not with our sure knowledge that we were caught in a bad twist of time with little chance we would go beyond it. Our lives were defined by a line from the present to a violent moment that must come for each of us. Riveting.
Yeah. I remember you read me the introduction to that book, and I have that in paperback, and it's beat up, and I've never read it, but that is definitely a book that I plan to read fairly soon because of just the passages that you have read, like that one tonight. My goodness, that must be a wonderful book. Those
Yeah.
Who Fall, John Muirhead. So in the spirit again of what the topic that we've been covering so much and we've been delving into so much with especially through living history and as everybody knows I'm such a big 8th Air Force fan. I decided to go back and reread a book, and I don't really do that very often, and there's few books that I will do that for, but this one I felt it was necessary because I think the first time I read it I was about 15, and I most of that was over my head. Most of this book I did not comprehend. Uh, but that was, what is that, 25 years ago now. And 25 years later, this guy all of a sudden is popular
Yeah.
because of the new miniseries that just came out, Masters of the Air. Uh, Harry H. Crosby wrote a memoir called A Wing and a Prayer. And the first mission he flies to Trondheim, Norway. They are going through. It's his first time really navigating, heading towards combat. He's scared to death. He can do his job. He thinks he can't. He's just a mess. And so as they're leaving the coast, they're at about 18,000 feet now, coming through some big, thick cumulus clouds, and they are allowed to start test firing their weapons. They're out over the channel. So it reads like this. I could smell cordite, the explosives from past firing of the machine guns. I could smell it so much it stung my eyes. I was conscious of my own sweat. I kept having to turn the volume of my radio down. Were the crew talking louder, or was I hearing more? Were they scared, or was I? Even though I was sweating, I began to climb into my altitude gear, zipper up my fleece-lined pants, then my boots and my jacket. I measured it once. 36 feet of zipper. Milady's zippers have gone to war. Oxygen mask, connected to hose. Hose connected to supply. I should have gone to my mask sooner, but I was too busy thinking of the other things. Stupid mistake. Electrical underwear connected to outlet. Flying helmet on. Earphones in place and connected. Throat mic connected. Goggles down. Gloves on. 6 hoses and wires to keep me alive and in touch with the crew.
Oh man. Oh
You
man.
know, when you think about 6 wires and hoses, and I talked about that one passage so many times over the weekend, these guys are on life support.
Yeah.
These guys are so encumbered with things that are just keeping them alive because the element around them means death.
Yes.
That is not the experience of a guy in a foxhole. Yes, there's death all around him, but the foxhole itself is not going to kill him.
Yeah.
That is just unbelievable. Um, I, you know, you were inside of a B-17. We can now finally say that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a big guy to be cramped in there. And one of the guys I talked to who said my dad was a top turret gunner on a B-17, I said, you better check out Sentimental Journey over there. Because at that front hatch where they've got a ladder so folks could go up, take a look at the cockpit. I said, you don't even have to climb it. He had a cane. I said, you don't even have to climb the ladder. But if you just look straight up and there's an opening between the pilot and
Yeah.
the pilot and the co-pilot seats are like almost suspended, right? It's not like a cockpit of a fighter where there's a floor all the way across. They're up on, they're kind of hung. They're almost
Like on a
suspended.
rack.
They're
Mm-hmm.
like a rack with a pad, and in between them, there's a big gap. Well, I say big. There is a gap for a man to be able to come through. And when you see movies about B-17s and TV shows, you may see a navigator pop up. You may see the flight engineer, and that's just that little cubby hole that opens up between the pilot and co-pilot and goes down almost into this tunnel where you go under the instrument panel through that bulkhead up to the front compartment where the navigator and bombardier sit. But if you look straight through that gap, you're looking out the plexiglass of the top turret position where the flight engineer would be.
Yeah.
So from the ground, with the front hatch open, that man could see up into where his father sat for so many missions.
Wow.
And I visited with him again. He came back to the table again, and I said, Did you get to see in there? And he nodded, and he started tearing up and choking up. And he said, just to see where my dad spent time,
Mm.
just to see just to see what it looked like. And I said, it's not very big, is it? And he said, no. He said, my dad was not a big man. He was about 5'8". And I said, yeah, it doesn't take much because it's not just the size of the man. It's the wool underwear, and then it's the wools over that, and then it's the flight jacket, and then it's the fleece lined jackets and fleece lined pants and fleece lined over boots and Mae West life preservers and potentially flak vests and
Yes.
flying helmets and steel
Absolutely.
pots and goggles and
And then
throat
trying
mics
to
and
escape
oxygen masks.
and trying to get out in a hurry.
Absolutely.
How do you do that? Like I was trying to get from one position to the other, and I could not do it without scraping an edge, without having a cord brush against me, without catching on a step, without a hook, a piece of aluminum. I was getting caught on everything, and I was like very careful. That was so insightful to see, and exactly what you're saying. Yes, 150%.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I just want to say too about what you're talking about. I lost track of the number of grown men that I saw cry over the last couple of days when they were talking to me about their dads. And it very, yeah. And I think that that's also the reason that the commemorative Air Force has opened up their doors as wide as they have for you and anybody that associates with you, because they know that if someone's going to be with you, they probably have the same kind of a heart and they have the same passion that you do. And I think that that is totally revealed in the trust that these grown men put in us in revealing how they truly feel about their dads by openly weeping with us. I mean, total strangers, and they just feel comfortable and they know we care and they feel safe and they will reveal some really important things to us. And I was honored, so honored to be a part of that. And I was in a German uniform. I was still getting tears. And I was imagine, if I was in can we talk about that for just a quick second about what you and I have decided to do as far as my future with, or is that going to be another episode?
Oh gosh, that could be an episode in itself. I'm so excited for that as well, and I
Yeah,
can't wait for Don to be
yeah.
filling in
Let's
on
let's
that.
let's let's do that with a different episode. What this all led to? Pretty amazing.
Absolutely. Well, I was honored to have you there with me. I was honored to be invited there. I was honored
Thank you
to
so
get to
much.
experience so much of what we did. To all of our listeners out there, we thank you. We appreciate you. We love that you love what we do and
Absolutely.
how we keep the memory alive. And we hope to see you on the next episode of What's the Scuttlebutt podcast. And if you have any questions, any comments, please send it our way. We'll try to get them answered. For if you've got questions for previous guests of authors or anything that you want to throw our way, suggestions for shows, topics that you'd love for us to talk about, let us know, and we
Send it
will
on.
catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you all.
This has been a Digital 410 production.